Welcome, everybody, to the last class of the 11th annual RTR, the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. This is although the last class of the RTR, the women's RTR classes start tomorrow. So I am Sue Ann Carlson, the director of Homes on Wheels Alliance, otherwise known as HOWA, H-O-W-A, our acronym. And our topic for this afternoon is about residency. And it's being presented by Bob Wells of Cheap RV Living. Bob probably doesn't need an introduction, but let me just tell you a few things about him. He does have a website and a YouTube channel called Cheap RV Living, and you can find those links down below in the description. He is the founder of the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous 11 years ago, and he is the co-founder, along with myself, of Homes on Wheels Alliance. So with that, Bob, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you, and looking forward to your talk on residency.
Thank you, Sue Ann. I appreciate very much all the hard work of you and your whole crew of putting all this together. It's pretty amazing what they've done here, folks. This is there's a lot of moving pieces in one of these shows. They've been amazing. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about residency. What state do you become a resident of? How do you get mail? How do you get a driver's license and all that stuff? And it's a fairly complicated topic. And I've got videos, a bunch of videos about it. So I've got like 3 20-minute videos. And so I'm trying to compress all of that into a short space. So I'm going to move pretty quickly. And hopefully you can get an overview from what I'm going to talk about. So I'll try and move quickly, but try and answer your questions. At the end, we will have an open question and answer time. And so if I move a little too fast, you miss something, write down your question and I'll address it at the end. Okay, so why are we talking about state of residency or getting your mail? Well, if you're already a nomad, this is an experience you had. And if you're only getting ready to become a nomad, this is an experience you will have. You move out of your house or your apartment, you move into your vehicle, your car, your van, your RV, whatever you have. And all of a sudden, how are you getting mail? I mean, there's your house and you're driving away and your mail is going to that house. And if it's an apartment, someone else is moving into that apartment. If it's a house, it's being sold to someone else. You're not going back there anymore and getting your mail. So where is your mail going to? And that becomes a pretty tough question. With mail, the actual physical mail, there's a fairly easy answer. You can go to if you're staying in your town, you can go to the post office, get a post office box, and then you could do an address change, and your mail will start going to the post office. Or, and I think is a better choice, you can go to the UPS store or a local equivalent to the UPS store and get a local box. The advantage is they will receive both FedEx, they'll receive your UPS, USPS mail. They will receive UPS boxes and FedEx boxes and DHL boxes and everybody's boxes. So that's a big advantage. So I recommend that you do go, if you are going to use a post office box, use the UPS store. But that's only part of the equation. You no longer live in that house. You used to live at 1234 Main Street, whatever your address was, and you no longer live there. And so you will run across things and they will ask you, where do you live? Where is your physical residence? And what will your answer be? Well, it's in the van and it's parked out front here. That's my residence. So that's not a good answer. A lot of people are going to say, oh, I don't know about that. Are you homeless bum? And they won't say that, but they'll think that, or maybe they'll say that. So that is an answer. So basically, there are two kinds of addresses for every American, and you must have them both. The first is the obvious, the mailing address, and that's easily solved. But the second is a physical residence address, and if you moved into a vehicle, that is not easily solved. A lot of what we're going to do today is address how do you get a physical residence address. And you say, okay, but how often do I need that? There are two main times that you absolutely must have a physical address, and that is getting anything to do with the government. They will often require proof of a physical address. So The prime example of that is your driver's license. Nearly every state now will require proof of a physical residential address. But another one that will affect all of us, because we're all in motor vehicles, aren't we? We all have insurance. Can't, if you don't have insurance, you can't get your license registered. You can't drive it. And so the insurance company will ask you this question. They will ask you, where is the vehicle garaged? And that's how they'll phrase it, because they want, and you say, well, okay, it's at the post office box, and you give them your post office box. They're going to say, no, it isn't. You don't have your vehicle garaged at the post office box. That's government property. And you say, okay, well, I have it housed at the UPS store. And instead of saying UPS store, a lot of them will give you a regular address. And they'll say no, and they'll look at the computer, and the computer will say, this is a commercial address. This is not a residence. And they'll say, no, it isn't. You're getting insurance. So on a prime example of how you have to have a residential location. This is where I actually physically live. I have a door, I go inside it, I live there. You don't have a door inside, you do not live at the UPS store or at a post office box. You just don't. You can't. It's illegal. And so they'll ask you, where's the garage? And the reason they ask you is because they know every zip code in the country, and they know everything about every zip code in the country. They know the accident rate. How many accidents do the people who drive around this zip code have? What does it cost to repair? If you do have an accident, how much is it going to cost you to repair that vehicle? How likely is it there's going to be a flood and your car is going to be damaged in a flood? How likely is it there's going to be a forest fire and your car is going to catch fire? They have an answer to all those things, because that's what they're in the business to do. Know those things so they can charge you appropriately for the risk. They know that every area is different, and so they know it's important. They must know. And so you have to be able to say, I am garaging my car at 1234 Main Street in whatever the city and state is. It's very, very important, and you have to do it. You have to give them something. And when you go to get your next driver's license, if you don't already have one, when you go to a new state, they're going to say, where is your physical residence? And you'll say 1234 Main Street, and they will show me two proofs of that you are actually living there, usually. And we'll get into that in a minute. I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So there's two kinds of addresses: the physical place, you open a door, you walk in, you go to sleep there, and the place where your mail goes. And usually, while they're the same, they can be completely different. There are towns in America, Quartzsite, I'm in Quartzsite, Arizona right now, there is no mail delivery. Nobody gets mail delivered to their home. Everyone in town has a post office box of some kind. So there are two kinds of mail addresses. There are two kinds of addresses. You must have one of each. You must have one of each in this country to function. How do you get them? Well, the easiest and best way is to have family and friends. So if you have an uncle or brother, a mom, a dad, sister, whatever, who will allow you to use their address and will receive your mail for you, done. That's easy. They'll do it. They'll take care of it. They'll get the mail. They'll send it to you. Real simple. Until they get tired of it. And that's the experience I've had over and over again with talking to people is, after a year or two, it just got to be a pain in the butt. And they finally just said, hey, this is a pain in the butt, me mailing you your mail all the time. Most of us don't have family and friends. I don't. And not only that, but like we learned from the insurance company, there are reasons to live in certain places. If your sister is in a very expensive place to live, that expense will roll down onto you. And I'll explain that more in a bit. So there are reasons you might want to go to a cheaper place and have your residence. So the first choice is family and friends, but that may not work. The best choice is to decide which state you want to move in, get a new address there, get a new driver's license there, because just like the insurance companies told us, some places are much cheaper than others. And so you can choose a state and save yourself a whole bunch of money. And there are other advantages too. So we're going to talk about now how to choose a state if you are going to move and get a new address, both mailing and residence, physical residence. There are three main choices that most people use. They either go to Florida, to Texas, or South Dakota. Because they have all the good reasons. And if you don't want to bother thinking about this anymore, choose one of those three states. I mean, those are great choices. South Dakota is by far the easiest and the cheapest. There's every reason to go to South Dakota. If you just want to get this over with, choose South Dakota. It's cheap and it's easy. You just have to stay a night in a motel. It's super easy, and you're not cheating or lying or deceiving. You're just becoming a resident, and they accept you and want you there. So that's easy. I personally chose Nevada. I think there are a number of good reasons to choose Nevada. Another three other states that I'll mention are Tennessee. If you're on the East Coast, you want to stay on the East Coast. Tennessee has a lot of advantages, and then Montana and Wyoming has a lot of advantages. I'm not going to go into any of those, but those are the big three, and then I would add Nevada, and then a lot of people choose and include Tennessee, Montana, and Wyoming. Okay, so you have to do three things. You have to choose a state. Once you've chosen the state, you have to get a mail forwarder, and then you have to go there and get your driver's license. What is a mail forwarder? They receive your mail. You fill out a document with the post office that allows them to receive your mail, and then all your mail will go to them. My mail goes to Mail, Messages, and More in Pahrump, Nevada. That's my residence. I'm a Pahrump, Nevada resident. Been there for 12 years. I've been a resident of Pahrump for 12 years. All my mail goes there. They hold it for me, and I will write them or email them or call them and say, hey, I am now in Quartzsite. Here's where you can send my mail. They'll put all my mail in a box. They'll ship it to me. I'll get it. Wherever I go around the country, they will ship it to me. They are forwarding it. They receive my mail. They hold it. They'll throw it away. If you tell them what you want to throw away, they'll throw it away. You could email them and say, hey, will you open this letter and scan it? It's really important that I see this. They'll open it. They'll scan it. They'll email it to you. They'll ship it to you right away. They'll put it in the box, put it in an envelope, send it right to you. So that is mail forwarding. That's how you get a mail forwarder. And in South Dakota, the great thing about South Dakota, why a lot of people choose it, is the mail forwarder will help you with every step of the process. They will help you get your driver's license. They'll help you everything. They'll point you to a friend who is an insurance agent, will help you get your insurance in that state. It's a one-stop shop with a mail forwarder in South Dakota, which is why a lot of people choose it. Really big advantages. It's such a long ways away, and it's cold in the winter, and it didn't appeal to me, and I didn't choose it. But it is a great, great choice, and for most of you, it will be the best choice. South Dakota, Texas is good, Florida good, and you can choose either one of those. Okay, so, but if you don't want to choose those, do the real easy way. You want to choose your own state. This is how you choose a state. These are the criteria, and you don't just throw a dart at a map and choose a state. There are good reasons. The first is the cost of living there. How much is it going to cost you? How much can you save by choosing one state over another? And it's surprising how much you can save. First is taxes. I have an income. If you have a business, you're young, you still have a business income, you have a pension. Does the state do they tax Social Security? Say your only income is Social Security. If that state taxes your Social Security, you don't want to have to pay taxes on that. You don't want to have to file a tax return every year. Don't choose that state. Out of all the states, the last I saw, 36 states do not tax Social Security. If that's your income, this stops being an issue. You just, if they're not taxing Social Security, you don't care. If you have a pension, does this state tax a pension? You have to look that up and find out for yourself. I had both a pension and a business income, and so I was not going to a state that had income tax. That's why I chose Nevada. The big three, Texas, South Dakota, Florida, none of them ones I mentioned. Nevada, I think Tennessee may, but it's favorable, and I think you still should consider Tennessee for other reasons. And I know Montana and Wyoming do not have an income tax. So that's why they're all right off the bat included. Think about a business. If you run a business of any kind, you have a business income, then how much does that state charge for tax on a business or on inventory or whatever you have, whatever you're doing? And again, in all those ways, I chose Nevada because I think they're very good for all those reasons. The next big thing when you think about how do I choose a state is the cost of having your vehicle in that state. And there's a lot of ways that one state will charge more than another. You've probably all heard stories of people who live in California. California is one of the highest income, costs more to live in California than almost anywhere. And they also have very high income because of that. But it's very expensive to live in California. And I have known people who went and took their vehicle down to the DMV in California, and they said it's going to cost $1,500 per year. $1,500 a year to keep my vehicle here. Then they went over across the border to Arizona or Nevada, and it was going to be 300, 200, 100. And so the cost of registering and the property taxes on your vehicle is a major expense. And you want to factor that in. You're going to have to do all your own research. I don't know the answers for the different states. You're going to have to do that research. Again, as a rule, South Dakota beats everybody, and then Florida and Texas are right behind them. So that's why people are choosing the big three states. They're cheaper there, and South Dakota is one of the cheapest. It's just so far out of the way. Another one is inspections. Another way a vehicle will cost you a lot more is inspections. If a state has a particularly an emissions inspection, or you have to go back every year for an emissions or a safety inspection, what a pain in the butt. You don't want to drive to Florida if you spend your time out west, or vice versa. You don't want to be in South Dakota if you spend all your time in Florida. You don't want to drive halfway across the country. That's really important. So just choose a state without emission inspections. Texas does. Of the big ones I've mentioned, I think only Texas does, but you don't have to renew it. It's my understanding. Double check this. It changes all the time. That's the problem. Everything changes all the time. As far as last I heard, you don't have to go back to Texas to get inspected every year. But if you do go back to Texas, you do have to get it inspected as soon as you get into the state. Or if it's out of date, you'll get a ticket. So if you're not in Texas very often, it isn't a big deal. Also, one of the ways that makes Texas a good state is the Escapees Club. If you join the Escapees RV Club, it's a good club. It's worth considering owning no matter what. Their mail forwarding is outstanding, and they will help you get become a Texas resident and take a lot of the problems away. And they also now, the Escapees are in Florida, and will do the same thing there. There's lots of mail forwarders. That's why those are the big three. Those three states are the big three. Okay. All right. We covered all that. And then finally, the cost of fuel. Think about the cost of fuel and the cost of insurance. Nevada has high insurance. I love everything about being a Nevada resident, but insurance costs me more in Nevada than in most states. That's the one big disadvantage. I learned to live with it because of the many advantages. The cost of gas. If you leave Quartzsite, you drive to Blythe, which is just across the border into California, you pay $1 more for gas, and that's crazy. You're not in the state very often, but you have to be there sometimes. So cost of gas can be something you think about. Finally, a really big factor on the cost of vehicle is if you're going to buy a commercial vehicle. So a commercial vehicle is a school bus, a shuttle bus, an ambulance, a box van, a step van. You know, those were all used once commercially. And if you get it reconverted to an RV by building out an RV, then that you can get it relicensed and reinsured as an RV. An RV is by far the cheapest way to get insurance. They're by far cheaper than any other way. And you can get full-time insurance on an RV. Insuring a commercial vehicle is very, very difficult and very, very expensive. Big pain in the butt. So if you have my advice is don't buy a commercial vehicle to solve all those problems. If you have your heart set on a commercial vehicle, do your research, find out who makes it very easy, and some states make it super easy, to convert a commercial vehicle into an RV. I know Tennessee does. I have a friend who did it, and it was super easy. And so that's an important consideration when you're thinking about the cost of insurance for a commercial vehicle if you have your heart set on a schoolie or a shuttle bus or an ambulance. Choose a state for that purpose, because it'll cost you a lot more money in insurance if you don't. I think you should consider politics when you choose a state. If you love guns and you just want to carry a gun on your hip, don't go to California because they won't let you carry a gun on your hip. So on the other hand, if you are completely anti-gun and you don't ever want to see people wearing guns on their hips, don't go to Arizona or Nevada or Montana or Wyoming. People are going to be running around everywhere with guns on their hips. And so politics is an important consideration. It might be the most important to you. And I'm not saying which side you believe in. I don't care. It's an important consideration. And that leads into the next one, which is the social safety net. If you need help from the government, some states give great help and some states give terrible minimal help. And so consider that. I know people who have maintained their California residency because even with all the other problems with being a California resident, and there are lots, they have this incredible social safety net. And it was life and death to them. They had to have that insurance because they just couldn't get insurance that they could afford. And so they maintained their California residency just so they could stay alive and go to a doctor. If they went to another state, they couldn't, they'd die. And so, I mean, that's more important than a more expensive state, isn't it? And so social safety net as far as insurance, auto and uh, unemployment insurance, that's a pretty big one to consider too. If you're working and you get laid off every year, that unemployment is pretty important. It's important right now in 2021 with the COVID, isn't it? And so that's very important that you think about those things. And finally, I think one of the most important things is location. I chose Nevada for all the other reasons were good, but the location was really the overwhelming thing. I spend all my time out west. Nevada is very central to all the Western states. I can leave any Western state where I spend all my time and be in Nevada in 1 day's drive. 1 day's fairly long, hard drive. And that made Nevada a state I wanted to, because it's easy to get there. If for some reason I have to get to my home state and take care of a problem, I can get to Nevada real easily. And it had everything else going for it except auto insurance. That was very high. One more consideration is kind of back to the safety net. If you're less than 65, you don't have Medicare, you're not on disability, then you are definitely going to need help with health insurance, probably. Yeah, it's not true. You don't definitely need it, but chances are, if you're moving into your car, van, or RV, you probably need help with health insurance. Almost all health insurance is state only. After 65, Medicare is everywhere. But if you just buy insurance, unless you're willing to spend an awful lot of money on a nationwide plan, it's only for that one state. And this is where location becomes very, very important. If you only have insurance in one state, your state had better be central to where you are. And that's why Nevada worked for me, because I could get to Nevada within a day's drive and get to a doctor. And if I chose South Dakota and I'm in Quartzsite, I got to go there in the winter to get medical. Or if I chose Florida, that's a 3 or 4 day drive all across the country. I'm not going to choose Florida. I wasn't going to choose Texas. That's like a 1.5 day, 3 day drive. I wasn't going to choose Texas. Nevada worked because if I had to get to the doctor before I got to 65, I could easily drive to the doctor and take care of health insurance. So that's an important factor. All right, all that's done. Now we're going to talk about driver's license. And again, you just have to go do your own research on those states. And I don't know, it changes all the time. So you have to do the research, but those are the things to consider. The driver's license. So I said there were 3 main steps, and the first main step is to choose a state. I just told you how to do that. Then get a mail forwarder. Then it's simple. Once you've chosen the state, Arizona, South Dakota, Texas, wherever, Tennessee, then you do a Google search on Tennessee mail forwarder. You look at the reviews, you go online to RV forums, you talk to other RVers. Who's a good mail forwarder in the state? In South Dakota, there's an abundance of choices. There are so many great ones. It's really easy. Again, why so many people choose South Dakota. But every state has them, plenty of them. There's no shortage of mail forwarders. You'll just have to do your research, choose a mail forwarder, fill out the forms, pay them the money. It's going to be about $10 to $15 a month and $100, $120 a year. Depends on the volume. You have to give them a deposit for, when they put together a box of your mail and mail it to you, or an envelope, usually it's an envelope, that will cost them $2, $3, $4 to ship, or $5, or if it's a big box, it might be $10. They will have you give them a certain amount of money, usually $25 or $50, and then they will take the $2 for this envelope out of it, and $3 for the next envelope, and here's a big box, and it cost $15. And as that money dwindles down, then they will write you and say your money's gone, put more money back in. That's just the cost of shipping that you're paying through them. There's not a charge they have for you. Some charge more for individual services if you want to scan. That's kind of a bad thing. If they won't just scan an email for you and email something to you, a letter, then that's kind of bad. But there's lots of good ones. And I don't know the South Dakota ones well enough. There's so many great ones. It's easy to choose. In Nevada, I choose mail messages and more, and I think it's like 120 a year. I've never been in any way dissatisfied with their service. Very, very happy with them. And so you choose a state on all the criteria I gave you. You hire a mail forwarder. You go to the state. You get a driver's license. That's the next step. And here's what you're going to have to do. Here's how you find out how to get your driver's license in every state. They're all a little different, and they're all subtly changing. You Google search driver's license requirements state. You have to do that Google search, and what they will almost always do, Google will show you the page of the state where they have a list of all their requirements, and then that's what you have to come up with. So Nevada, driver's license requirements, Nevada, driver's license requirements, Texas, driver's license requirements, Washington state. And then from there, you'll see exactly what they require. You've learned everything else. That's what you got to bring. The problem now is that because of something called the Real ID Act, you have to now bring in proof of residency. Now, remember, at our original discussion, there's two kinds of addresses. There's the mailing address, which is the UPS store or mail messages and more, or any mail forwarder, or even a post office box. I don't recommend that. It works really poorly, but you could do that. That's not a residence address. And you can have your mailing address because you have two. You have a residence address and a mailing address. You'll need a mailing address because they're going to send you stuff. Most places now, they don't give you a driver's license right there. They mail it to you. That's pretty common now. It's not always true. And the same with the license plates sometimes, or titles. They mail it to you. You got to have a mailing address. You gotta have a mailing address. You got a mail forwarder for that. Solved. But you got to have a physical residence, and they want to, almost always they want two types of proof. Now, they're hard to get because you don't live in a home, do you? You live on wheels. And I'm going to give you here a few quick ways that you can get your driver's license. You can take in the proof and get it. And all this is because of the Real ID Act, and I won't explain that to you. You can do your own research on that. The first way, and it's almost always works, is to rent an apartment or an RV park and take in the rent receipt. The rent receipt is the first one you would need, and that will do it. On nearly all states, that will work. You'll have to check on your individual state to be sure by doing the Google search. But almost always a rent receipt from an RV park or a motel. Big reason why South Dakota is popular. It's only one night in a motel or one night in an RV park. It's cheap either way. It's not 30 days in a motel or an apartment. And Nevada specifically lists it has to be 30 days. And so you got to rent a motel or an apartment for a month in Nevada, or an RV park in Nevada. So bringing in your rent receipt, however you do it, wherever you get the rent receipt from, every state's different. You have to look at every state. Another way, another document you can take in almost always is to buy land. You say, well, Bob, I don't want to buy land. Well, maybe you should think about it. Across the desert Southwest, particularly Nevada and Arizona, New Mexico, I think probably in Utah, I don't know for sure. I know in Arizona and Nevada, you can find an acre for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. You can pay $100 down, $100 a month, and then you own the land, and you've got a title to the land. You've got proof that you own this land, and make sure the land has an address. I bought a piece of land in northern Arizona, and it has an address. It's in Williams, Arizona, and that is proof. And again, double check each and every state to verify this by Google search driver's license requirements Arizona, and then you'll know if I bring in a sale, a contract that I'm buying a piece of land at this address in Arizona, will that be good enough? Find out. And it usually is. Most states will take that as one of your proofs. Now, I believe this is universal across the country because the courts have ordered that the states cannot withhold driver's licenses from the homeless. And the homeless don't have addresses because by definition, they are what? Homeless. And so if it's illegal not to give them a driver's license, what do? Well, you allow them to go to a social service agency, the service agency, Catholic social services, or a local food bank, or a local rescue mission. And if they are a client of that social service agency, whatever it is, it's usually a nonprofit, not a government agency, but a nonprofit. Catholic Social Services is a big one. And they will sign an affidavit saying you are a client and you are a resident there. And so that works really well. And it's going to be free. You're not going to cost you anything. You have to just go and get them to sign a client that you document an affidavit saying that you are a client. You take that in. And I have a video. Oh, I did write that down. I have a video on my channel of a guy who did exactly this. He never lied. He never cheated. He was 100% honest every step of the way. And he got himself a Nevada driver's license and became a Nevada resident using this method. And so I think this will work in all 50 states because all the courts have said you cannot withhold a driver's license from a homeless person. They can get a driver's license. And so the name of that video is Super Cheap and Easy Way to Become a Nevada Resident. And it is super cheap, super easy. He did it in Laughlin, Nevada. If you can get to Laughlin, Nevada, you can do exactly what he did and become a Nevada resident. Really cheap, really easy. Okay, so a client of a social service agency. I believe you're going to find that one almost everywhere. And the last one is local resident, and we already covered that. And that's how you can become, get your residence address. Okay, I think I covered it all, and really fast. And if we can get another question in, did I answer? I said everything on my list. There it is, long list. And now we'll just knock out a few questions, as many as we can, and then afterwards there will also be some written questions. I guess it's the way this works. Okay, fire away.
You got that. Okay. This is from Tennessee Jim. What are some easy states to establish residency east of the Mississippi?
I believe Florida. Florida is the number one choice nearly everyone uses. And then I personally do not have enough specific knowledge except to say I do know a number of people that say Tennessee. I believe they do have an income tax, but I could be wrong. I don't know that. Things change so fast too. But I don't think they charge. If they do, maybe they don't charge. And this is important. If your only income is Social Security, and they don't tax Social Security, you're never going to pay social tax. So you don't care if they tax anyone else. And I think that's why people choose Tennessee. And I have had a friend who bought a school bus in Tennessee and got it converted for nothing. I mean, he walked into the DMV and said, I'm turning that into an RV. And the guy said, great, here's your RV license. I mean, it was basically that simple. So I think Tennessee and Florida are the only ones I personally know that people go out of their way to choose. And I don't have any more knowledge than that.
Okay. This is Daryl's question. It says South Dakota seems to be the easiest place to establish residency. If you agree, why didn't you use South Dakota yourself?
One of the primary reasons is location, because location is very important to me. I thought location was more important than the ease. And remember, I became a resident in 2008, 12 years ago. It was really easy, much easier then than it is now. The Real ID Act has made it much harder. And in fact, I just in December renewed my driver's license, and because I'm grandfathered in, I didn't have to jump through any of the hoops. I've never jumped through any of the hoops. I'll never have to, as long as I keep renewing my driver's license in Nevada. But I went to the DMV, the rules on Nevada, and newly issued driver's license, they do require the proof of residency, no matter what. And so if you go there now, you're going to have to provide the proof. I didn't have to. It was really easy. I don't even think I did anything for an address when I originally got it back then. So I didn't face that problem. That you guys are facing problems now I didn't have because I'm grandfathered in. Uh, the main reason I didn't choose South Dakota is it's too far away. Again, let's think again about health insurance. If you're a resident of South Dakota and you're not 65, but you have health insurance, unless you buy a nationwide program, which is always very expensive because you're getting more service, so it costs more. It only makes sense. You have to go to South Dakota every time you want to go to a doctor. Well, I am not going to South Dakota every time I need to go to a doctor. I'm just not. And so I'll go to Nevada because it's just up the road. Literally, it's just up the road. The drive up to Pahrump is nothing. And so that was location was my primary consideration. And in my case, Art Bell. And I won't get into that too long. A guy named Art Bell was a radio host, and I loved Art. And Art lived in Pahrump, Nevada, and I like the name Pahrump. Isn't that a good name? Pahrump. It's a good name. That's why.
Good deal. Relaxed and refreshed is the next person. Do you know which state has the easiest cargo van to RV conversion laws?
And I don't. And it's really the sad thing is, I know someone who did it in Arizona, and it couldn't have been any easier. I mean, it could not have been any easier. He really did a nice conversion. When you walk, he got a shuttle bus, and which is a commercial vehicle, of course, so it had to be converted from commercial to RV. And when you walked in, it looked just like an RV. It didn't have any tanks. It didn't have plumbing. It didn't have propane, just a bottle. And so technically, you would never have passed a real inspection. But the day he went in, the guy was busy and didn't care. And he just walked in, looked around and said, hey, yeah, this is an RV, and signed it. And yet I've known people in Arizona that went in and the guy was a stickler, just a stickler. Said, no, it was a schoolie. Said, no, you go paint this thing. And you got to have a black water tank attached somewhere. So my friend had to go out and build in a black water tank and paint it. I thought he painted it green. I'm not sure. So even in the state that it's hard, it can be easy. The one state I know someone who said it was always easy was Tennessee. And that's a long way for most of us. If you're out west, that's a long ways away. You're going to have to do the research yourself. I just don't know.
Okay. On the Road Again asks, how does a mail forwarding service work? Where can I get my mail on the road?
Like I said, you have to fill out a USPS document that makes them legally able to receive your mail and to open your mail, because they are legally now, if you give them permission, they can open your mail. And so you'll fill out this document, and then all your mail, everywhere you give an address, you give this address. Mine is in Pahrump, Nevada, 1234 Main Street, Pahrump, Nevada. And all the mail goes there. And then if I'm going to be in a place for a while, I will call her or email her and say, hey, this is my address for the next month. So when I'm if I go home to Oregon to be with my mom and my sister, all my mail will go up to 409 or to my sister's house in Oregon, and 1234 Main Street, Oregon. And so it's that way all summer. And whenever she gets an accumulation, she just sends it to me up there, and that's how I get my mail. So it's really not that simple. They get it, they receive it, they throw away whatever you tell them to throw away. They'll open it, they'll scan it. I had a mail forwarder who, if I asked her to, would open every letter I was getting unemployment from California. She would open every letter from California. And if they checked a certain box, I had to go and prove that I was looking for work. And she would open it up and read it and check every box and tell me if it was checked or not. It's amazing. A good one will do a lot of services above and beyond. Sometimes they'll charge more, but that's okay. They're doing more. And so they do a lot of really good services. Now, how do you get it on the road? Well, then I do look ahead for a UPS store. That's how I will generally get mail on the road. I'll look ahead and say, okay, I'm going to be in Jackson, Wyoming in 3 days. So I'll call the UPS store in Jackson. Just look up UPS store, Jackson, Wyoming, and you'll find it on the line. And I'll say, hey, I'm going to be there in 3 days. Can you hold my mail for me? I'm going to get a package. And they'll say, sure. And then I tell my mail forwarder, send this package to 1234 Main Street to Bob Wells, care of UPS store, 1234 Main Street, Jackson, Wyoming. And then when I get there, it's sitting there waiting for me. And they won't hold it for long. They get upset, and you cannot send it by USPS. It has to go by FedEx or some other service, UPS or FedEx. That's not technically legal for them to receive it if you don't have a box there from the USPS, Post Office, United States Post Office. But so I just say put it in a FedEx envelope and send it to me at Jackson, Wyoming. So that's how you get it on the road, and that's the main way. Most larger towns, like even if they don't have a USPS store, Leadville, Wyoming has a store in it, and I spend a lot of time in Leadville. I love Leadville. And they have a local store that offers mailboxes, and they will receive your mail for you just like a USPS store. So if you look for mail receivers in a small town, a lot of times you'll find them. But that's how you do it. You find a mail receiver ahead of you and then get it there. They have them I've gotten the mail in Jackson, in Moab. There's all over the country. If you go to my Amazon page, my Amazon account, I have page after page after page after page of Bob Wells care of UPS store, Bob Wells care of all over the country. There's tons of them. No problem finding them.
Very good. Bob and Robin, is it a problem to change the state I reside in once I am on the road?
No. In fact, you usually can't. The primary way you change residence is by getting a driver's license. You go there, and then when you're there, you get your driver's license, and that's mainly how you get proof of residency. So no, you have to. I don't think you can actually be a resident of a state without a driver's license there. So you have to leave the state. Well, I guess you don't have to. Say you're going to become a South Dakota resident and you live in North Dakota. Well, you would just drive down North Dakota, get your mail forwarder, hire them. Your mail would go there. You'd get your insurance for your car there. Then you go to the DMV and you'd get your driver's license there. They're going to take a picture. They're going to do an eye test. That's why you physically have to be there. You must physically be there. You get your driver's license. You've got your insurance. You've got your mail there. You're now a resident of South Dakota, but you have to be there. You can't get it. You can't do all that from North Dakota because you've got to get your driver's license, and that requires an eye exam and a picture.
Okay, good. Okay. Wagon Train asks, which states that nomads use have the lowest vehicle insurance rates?
If you do a Google search, you can find out for yourself. Do a Google search on cheapest states for car insurance. I guarantee you'll find a website that will list them all, one car for all of them, and tell you which one is the cheapest. So you can find out for yourself.
Good. Okay, Marcella Smith, what is it I hear about a one-time vehicle registration in Montana?
I don't know. But that is almost certainly has to do with becoming an LLC in Montana or Wyoming. That's the big thing about both of those states. And I haven't done enough research to actually give you the answers. I don't want their location. For me, again, remember, location is most important. Well, it's not most important. Money is most important. But after money, location is most important. And they're both too far out of the way. Montana's too far north. Wyoming is somewhat central, but it's cold. I don't want to ever be forced to go to Wyoming. Again, if you're not 65, but you have health insurance, it's probably only going to be in your home state. Do you want to be forced to go to Wyoming or Montana in the winter for health insurance? I don't. If I have problems with my driver's license for some reason, and I have to go there, do I want to go there in the winter? Do I want to drive there from Yuma, Arizona to Wyoming in the winter for whatever reason? I don't. And so I didn't include them. But you're going to have to do your own research. And I know I have done just enough to know that getting an LLC is a limited liability corporation, is reasonably cheap and offers enormous advantages financially. One of them is with registration. And I don't know enough about it to give you details. So just do a search. on advantages of getting an LLC in Montana or Wyoming, and 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 something like that, and just keep searching on that and you'll find out.
Lynette French is asking, have you used Amazon lockers to receive packages, or do you just send to your mail forwarder and have it shipped again?
I never have. I do have a friend who's used it and it worked extremely well. Um, it's just I haven't been in a situation recently where I needed to. So I haven't, but I'm sure it's great. I don't have any question. Whatever Amazon does, they do really, really, really well. And so I don't have any question. Let me tell you the weirdest place I ever heard about where you could get mail. I know someone who got a box from Amazon at the Safeway in Parker, Arizona. You say, what? That's exactly what I said. Huh? Are you kidding me? And I wanted to verify it. I said, that can't be true. So the next time I camp around Parker a lot. I really like camping around Parker, Arizona. And there's a Safeway there and a Super Walmart. That's why I like being there. Lots of free camping around there. It's great. I like it. So I went, next time I was in Parker, I went up to the office and I said, someone told me I could receive a package here from, or mail here, right here at the office at this Safeway. And she said, yep, you put in Bob Wells, care of the Safeway. She gave me the address. I could receive it right there, and it was free. Why? Because I had to go into Safeway, and while I was there and they were giving me this package, I'm like, I'll buy something here. You know what? I did. And I never followed through and did that, but it's kind of surprising. The second most surprising place I ever got mail, I'm just showing you this. Be creative and go ask. Was in a sewing machine store in, what's that town 65 miles northwest of Phoenix? Wittenberg, Wickenburg, Arizona. Out slightly outside of town was a sewing machine store that was famous among RVers. This was 10 years ago. I don't know if it's still true. They received mail there. And so when I was in Wickenburg, I got all my mail and they charged $1 a box. I received all my mail at the sewing machine store in Wickenburg, Arizona. That's also another really great place to camp. I really like Wickenburg. It's only 65 miles on good roads down to Phoenix, and so Wickenburg's a good place. Those are the two weirdest places I've ever gotten mail. Okay.
Okay. We are at the end of our questions here, Bob. I wanted to know if you have any comments to wrap up the residency information.
It's complicated, but Google is your friend. And,
yeah.
Almost any question you will ask me, if you just do a Google search on it, you'll find it. And so be creative, get out Google and look stuff up.
And now, because you are the founder of the Rubber Trail Rendezvous, and this is the last RTR class before we go into the women's RTR, would you wrap us up, please?
Well, the first thing I have to do is just give a huge thanks to all the folks involved in making this thing happen. It looks pretty easy from where you're sitting right now, but I know enough behind the scenes for the people who are doing the work. I wasn't. It was really hard. There was a lot to learn. This is being broadcast live, so we're going off Zoom onto YouTube. That's complicated in itself. And then it's all being edited and coming out that day on the channel. There's another big step. And then it's coming out this next day, edited down in great length, onto my channel. And so there's so many moving parts and so many things that can go wrong. And so few ever did. Stunning work. Stunning work. These volunteers work like crazy to make this happen. I'm just so appreciative. And I'm really glad that although we just could not risk putting together a group of people with COVID, especially COVID in Arizona is going crazy. It's a worldwide hotspot of COVID. We just couldn't risk it. And so people, I've heard people speculate, well, this last year with the having to do it at the fairground and this year this is the death of the RTR. It's never going to happen again. Too bad. It was great while it lasted. It's gone. No, sir. I don't know. How can I say this without being coarse? No, this is just the beginning for the RTR. It's going to get bigger and better than ever. It's been a one-man band until I brought in some helpers in the last 2 or 3. But now there's a small army of volunteers that will make this thing so great. The very best times of the RTR are to come. Take my word for it. I'm going to buy land. I am going to buy land and give it to HOWA in some form so that we can have our own land, and we'll settle all these issues. We'll have land. We'll have an RTR. That's going to happen. I hope it happens this year. So next 3 p.m. It's 3 p.m. So that next year's RTR will be on our private land. But if not, very soon, the best is yet to come for RTR. I want you to know that. And I think this went so well. It was a lot of work, but it went so well. We will always have virtual classes, so you don't have to come. You can see all the classes wherever you are. You can see them from now on. They'll always be on the HOWA channel and on my channel and condensed. And so I'm just so grateful for everyone that put in all this work. And I just want you to know this is not the end. This is the doorway into an enormous, growing, better than ever, better than you could ever dream of RTR to come. So stay tuned.
I totally 100% agree, Bob. Thank you.